I'm Teresa Carraggio, and this is Third Paradigm. My topic today is Maui and the Oligarchs. I'm thinking that my viewers and readers already know a lot about this topic, so I'm going to begin by recapping some of the things that we probably already know. And then I'm going to get into some things that were new to me, some from Vanessa Beeley, and then others from Bilbobitch, who is as controversial as that name implies, not to be confused with wrong. And in order to show that that is not necessarily wrong, I'm going to look at some of those details from different angles and different sources, especially ones that go back to the Las Vegas mass shooting that was overseen by the same police commissioner who was in Lahaina on the day of the fires. And I don't think we should ever be calling these wildfires. We should really be talking about them as a controlled demolition. But in the same way as 9/11, that word needs to convey the violence and the viciousness and cold-heartedness that could make such a thing possible. Let's do this. Let's start by summarizing the details of how this was done. We all know the largest integrated siren system in the world, 80 sirens tested monthly, never sounded, and the emergency manager has resigned. That should satisfy us. We know the timing was coordinated with suspicious hurricane-level winds that dumped no rain and didn't touch any other island. The schools were unaccountably closed that day, so kids were home alone while parents had to go to work. And of everything, that is the most heartless. We know the main road was blockaded with trucks, so no one could get out. We know the police chief who made that decision, John Pelletier, was also the incident commander during the Las Vegas mass shooting. We know the native practitioner in water management turned off the fire hydrants with the mumbo-jumbo that water is sacred and shouldn't divide us. There needed to be a discussion about equity before that could happen. Burn, baby, burn. I'm sure the money that he'll receive will be sacred too. We know Lahaina was coveted real estate that local holdouts refused to sell. We know that the fire skirted multi-million-dollar beachfront property and made a ring around those holdouts. We know that, like in Paradise, California, houses were incinerated and trees next to them untouched. We know that, like Hurricane Katrina, supplies and medicine are being stockpiled rather than given to survivors. Katrina cleared out homes held for generations by the first free Negro communities. And we know that the murdered are more like 500 to 1,000, rather than the 100 reported, which was already the highest death toll for a U.S. fire in recent history. What might we not know? In Vanessa Beeley's UK column, she covers what she calls the Maui Inferno tragedy, and she refers to it as part of the Burn Back Better campaign. She looks at the Brightian video, which has been, I think, the major viral source of information, and she quotes Dr. Kathy J. Forte, who went to Lahaina that day because a friend said she just had an urge to go there. And for the 30-minute drive, there were no winds, no sirens, but as soon as they hit Lahaina, all power was zapped. No cell phones, traffic lights, GPS, internet, or 9/11 emergency system. Then a rainless hurricane came in with 60 to 80 miles per hour winds, uprooting trees and telephone poles. As the fires suddenly raged into life, They tried to get out, but traffic was blocked. They escaped through a back road, but with GPS down, others may not have found it. Her friend and she, along with others, had experienced almost seizure levels of dark energy flooding their brains the night before and that morning. Vanessa reports that Maui is targeted to be the first smart island. At the January 2023 IEEE conference, speakers presented on personalized human-robot interactions and trust in AI for healthcare, government, justice, and daily life. Defense and healthcare sectors are presented as one entity, along with symbiotic human-machine systems. The September conference is still happening, but is moved to Honolulu. In 2011 through 16, there was a Jump Smart Maui push for a Hawaii and Japan partnership. Since COVID, properties over 10 million have grown sixfold. Biden has offered $700 per fire victim, and Vanessa quotes that Carrie Lake points out that it's costing $900 per household to fund the proxy war in Ukraine. Vanessa also looks at fires now happening where wind farms have been proposed in Tenerife, an island of Spain. In 2019, there was a Smart Island Tenerife Summit. The newscaster interviewing Vanessa presents a Defense Department brief on directed energy weapons. They called their demo versions Dragonfire, using integrated lasers and radio frequencies on a military platform. What the newscaster calls an upbeat article on the Sovereign Laser-Directed Energy Program shows the technology is there, and he is being sarcastic. And Vanessa concludes by stating that if they can do it, we know they will. As one of her commenters, Lalage, points out from a blacklisted news article, a 44-page book about the fires was on Amazon within 48 hours, called Fire and Fury, the story of the 2023 Maui fire and its implications for climate change. The article has a photo of a fence around the fire with a firefighter looking in. Then Pasheen Stonebrook of Diva Drops alerted me to a deep state deep dive being done on the Maui fires by Bilbobitch. I am embarrassed to admit that I banned Bilbobitch from commenting on my stack for, I think, 100 years, and I'm not sure I can undo that. Here's my rationale. As you know, if you've been watching, I do a lot of critique of the Torah as imperial propaganda. I look at Israel as the tail that wags the dog of U.S. foreign policy. And I look at the Rothschilds as the kings of the banking cabal, which I think is the one ring to rule us all. So my feeling was that if I was going to be critiquing Semitism as the God-given right to rule over others, I needed to steer clear of anything that could be interpreted as a slur, even if it wasn't coming from me. Now, Bilbobitch plays fast and loose with a word that I'm afraid to use, which is Jew. And I think that for me, I've been using Semite or Shemite for the biblical ruling class, for the bloodlines, and Israel for the occupying invasion. But I've wondered recently if I'm turning shades of RFK by giving in to they who must not be named. If Harry can say Voldemort, surely I can say Jew. There is no other religious or ethnic group or nationality that can't be named. We talk about China doing this or that as if it's a single person. We talk about the Saudis as if every burqa'd head was in on the plot. And even the city of London is personified as one multi-tentacled entity. but there is no association between any Jewish persons. Indeed, even a single person can't be named as a Jew, but merely Jewish. But bitches go where Anglos fear to tread, and they cover some wild territory. I don't have the research to verify all of this, but it is intriguing as hell and answers the big questions, which are why and who and why now. So let's dig into Maui fires, Lahaina destroyed, mission accomplished. Bilbobitch also quotes from the Brightian video, saying that it took 6 hours for all levels of government to approve the billions it will require to build back better, and that the state will be buying up all the properties. Bilbobitch writes, critical note in the video, one gal is driving the day before and points out that it was raining aluminum foil, which is a directed energy weapon microwave accelerant that bursts into flames when hit with microwave energy, which is how they burned the entire town to a crisp all at once. When the alum powder mixes with beach sand powder in the dry air, you get thermite, the most powerful, hottest burning explosive there is, chemical non-nuke. And I'd point out that thermite was also used in the controlled demolition of the World Trade Center, after which the dancing Mossad agents were sent on their way. Bilbobitch uses the acronym ZOG, which I think might mean Zionist oligarchs. And I think that's a useful distinction that we should be generalizing for CHOG, Chinese oligarchs, ROG, Russian oligarchs, INDOG, Indian oligarchs, SAWDOG, Saudi oligarchs, etc. These should be distinguished from the PPP, the pedo-politician puppets, whose strings are controlled by the GLOG, global oligarchs, at the top of the hierarchy. And that's a word that literally means the inheritance order of the archons. So who are at the top of the pyramid? Bilbobitch believes the ZOG to be the GLOG, with the Rothschilds and Soros ruling over the ZOG, which I also suspect is true. But the Chinese oligarchs may also be ZOG, going back to who funded Mao, and using Indian oligarchs and politicians to put layers of obfuscation between them, including 4 candidates for U.S. president. According to Bilbobitch, the $1 trillion port built in Haifa, Israel, was paid for by the CHOG, owned by the ZOG, but named after the top INDOG, Adani. He writes, richest man in India, Adani now has his name on the Haifa port, still owned by China, in Israel. The new port in Lahaina, Maui, will also be in the name of the Indian billionaire. Why? Because China wants to be like Israel and not have the Goyim know who are the real owners of Hawaii. China paid off for cancel of 2008 debt. China owns Hawaii, an entire west coast of USA and Canada. The energy weapons are being used to clear residents from China lands. What's the connection between Maui Police Chief John Pelletier and his right-hand man being the incident commander at the Las Vegas mass shooting? Bilbobitch writes, actually, this is topical because Saudi cash is going to pay for the new port at Lahaina, owned by China but in Indian names. But real cash comes from Saudi via the petrodollar. Remember, Las Vegas shooting was a deep state operation with FBI, CIA, read Maui Police Chief John Pelletier, done by lefty and Democrat financier Prince Al-Walid bin Talal al-Saud, and his BFF Washington Post, Jeff Bezos, writer and arms dealer Jamal Khashoggi, to kill MBS, who was in Las Vegas in Al Walid's hotel, Four Seasons, same as the Patsy. The outcome was Al Walid ended up hanging upside down in a hotel in Saudi Arabia with his feet beaten morning, noon, and night. Khashoggi went to pieces, and Bezos has his bare-ass dick photos with his MTF girlfriend released to the public, resulting in a $1 billion divorce. The 99 dead Americans in Las Vegas were an Operation Northwoods distraction, like the hundreds that died in Operation Destroy America in Hawaii. These people are psychopaths who want you dead. Let's do some research and see if we can corroborate any of these facts. The lone gunman shooting in Las Vegas was on October 1st, 2017. A November 6 article called "Was Las Vegas a Coup Assassination Cover-Up Attempt Gone Wrong?" explains. I'll start at the beginning. There was a King Faisal who had a son, Prince Al Walid bin Talal. King Faisal took ill and named his brother Salman as king in his place. King Salman has named his son an heir to the throne instead of his brother's son, Prince Al Walid. In Las Vegas, Prince Al Walid owned the upper floors of the Mandalay Bay Resort, including the 32nd floor that was one of the points of shooting at the Strip. I say one of the places because the witnesses were all correct. There were other locations too. The Mandalay Bay has a helipad on the roof. That is important because that was the escape route after the carnage. Paddock was a pilot. He was also a gun runner between the Philippines and the U.S. He was running guns for Prince Al Walid. Salman was at the Tropicana, so not at the Mandalay Bay Four Seasons, but also Paddock is the one who the shooting has been blamed on. After this article describes the failed attempt to kill MSB, it links a later Reuters article titled "Purge of Saudi Princes, Businessmen Widens, Travel Curbs Imposed." The reported arrest of Nasser bin Aki al-Tayyar followed the detentions of dozens of top Saudis, including billionaire investor Prince Al Walid bin Talal, in a crackdown that the Attorney General described as Phase 1. The purge is the latest in a series of dramatic steps by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to assert Saudi influence internationally and amass more power for himself at home. So that was under cover of being a crackdown on corruption, but it definitely does corroborate the other facts. In terms of Jeff Bezos, a Vox article connects the sleazy photo cache to the Bezos' $38 billion divorce and mentions Trump's friendship with the National Enquirer CEO that Bezos accused of extorting him. The photo in the article is from February 2017. Was that the last of the happy couple? Now let's look at Jamal Khashoggi. He was killed on October 2nd, 2018, so a year and a day, which seems very significant. Was he really just a journalist? This question had already been occurring to me because I'd been reading Whitney Webb's One Nation Under Blackmail, and it talks a lot, multiple references to a Khashoggi. That turns out to be Adnan Khashoggi, who is his uncle. She writes, Epstein, in the early 1980s, was trained in arms trafficking and money laundering by Adnan Khashoggi and Sir Douglas Leese jointly. Jeffrey Epstein was a major participant and principal in the arms trafficking and money laundering operations of Adnan Khashoggi and Sir Douglas Leese for Israel for what they were doing in the United Kingdom. According to Stephen Hoffenberg, by 1983, Leese was working closely with Jeffrey Epstein, specifically on the sale of Chinese weapons to Iran. Per Hoffenberg, Saudi arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi, by then on the payroll of Israel's Mossad and close to the intelligence apparatus of the Saudis and the U.S., was also part of these efforts. In addition, in 1989, Khashoggi himself had been called by Vanity Fair one of the greatest whoremongers in the world. Hoffenberg was found dead in his hotel room in 2022, but others have confirmed that Khashoggi was the precursor to the sex blackmail ring at the same time that he was tutoring Epstein in money laundering and arms trafficking. An Indian journal called The Print published soon after Jamal's murder that the journalist was the nephew of Adnan Khashoggi, the international arms dealer, who was not only the infamous go-between in the Iran-Contra arms affair in the mid-1980s, but also friend to godman Chandra Swamy and former Prime Minister Chandra Shekhar. Certainly, Adnan Khashoggi's India connection still makes tongues wag nearly 30 years later. Adnan Khashoggi's father was a doctor to the founder of the Saudi monarchy, King Abdul Aziz, while his mother was Turkish. His sister was the mother of billionaire Dodi Fayed, Princess Diana's lover, who died with her in the Paris car crash in 1997. This made Jamal Khashoggi and Dodi Fayed cousins. Adnan Khashoggi continued to make waves until his death last year. He owned the largest yacht in the world, the Nabila, named after his daughter. It was used in the James Bond film Never Say Never Again. When Khashoggi's money ran aground, he sold the yacht to the Sultan of Brunei, who in turn sold it to U.S. businessman Donald Trump for $29 million. The yacht was ultimately sold to Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, a businessman and member of the extended Saudi royal family, allegedly as part of a deal to save Trump's Taj Mahal casino from bankruptcy. So it goes into a lot of detail about all of the important people that Khashoggi met with in India, and so ties in all of those connections along with the Saudis and Donald Trump. The article jumps to then President Trump saying of Jamal's death, it's a plot gone awry, and that he will continue to sell $110 billion of arms to the Saudis. He fails to mention what that actual plot was, or the 99 innocent bystanders that were killed as a distraction. So how does the incident commander end up with a promotion to turn one of the most beautiful places on earth into a hellhole? Did he tip MBS off? Or, having already sold his soul to one devil, was he the perfect candidate to supervise the burning of hundreds more? To follow up, speaking of devils, here is the Devil and Naomi Wolf that talks about the Jewish right to rule over others. And this is The Reset and Ukraine, the same or different masters, speaking of the Glog. Thank you for watching.